Temos hoje connosco o Jim Friedman, que faz parte da equipa internacional da coordenação da WCIW, portanto, a World Creativity and Innovation Week Day. O Jim é um amigo do Torrance Center que se graduou na Universidade de Cincinnati em Design, tendo realizado depois o doutoramento em Comunicação. É aquilo que podemos chamar um empreendedor criativo em série. Construiu campanhas de marketing, desenvolveu múltiplas patentes, escreveu e gravou várias músicas e obras de arte. Desde 2008, que ensina Criatividade e Empreendedorismo na Universidade de Miami e é orador frequente sobre as temáticas da criatividade e branding pessoal. É um vencedor de 65 prémios Emmy e reconhecido pela sua criatividade em sala de aula. O Jim hoje vai-nos falar da criatividade global, do ponto de vista de quem faz parte desta equipa internacional da World Creativity and Innovation Week. O evento será em inglês, mas estamos certos de que, da maneira como o Jim comunica, tão clara, todos compreenderão. No final, o Jim está disponível para responder algumas questões e, se desejarem, colocá-las em português, a nossa equipa terá todo o gosto em traduzir essas vossas perguntas. Jim, thank you for being here, celebrating creativity with us. You may start your presentation.
Wow. That sounded all very important and interesting. I actually caught a few things that I almost understood. Hopefully, you will understand what I'm going to talk about, because I haven't figured out what I'm going to talk about yet. I would like to make this as much of a conversation as we can. This year, World Creativity Innovation Week, World Creativity Innovation Day, our theme is collaboration. And collaboration is really critical in all forms of creativity. When we talk about creativity, to make sure that we're all on the same path, we actually talk about creativity in two senses. The first one is what most people think. When you ask somebody, are you creative? They'll generally say, oh, no, I'm not creative, because they think of creativity in terms of art making. I can sing, I can dance, I can draw, I can paint. But if you can't do that, I'm not creative. We call that expressive creativity. The type of creativity that we are most interested in is the inventive creativity, which I call second right answer. It's the way we think. If we can think creatively, therefore, everything we do can be a creative act. So let me start, and I'm imagining most of you know what I'm about to share, but it puts us on equal footing. And it's the story of this guy whose name is George Land. And George Land, in the 1950s, was responsible for hiring the scientists who were going to send people to the moon, land on the moon, take off again and come home. Well, in the 1950s, it had never been done before. People hadn't gone into space yet. And now they were already thinking about landing on the moon and coming back. The study of creativity is really fascinating to me, because we have been studying philosophy for 1,000 years or more. We've been studying medicine for thousands of years. We've been studying mathematics for thousands of years. We have been studying creativity for approximately 70 years. 70. It started after the Second World War. After the Second World War. And the thought was this: somebody was wondering why some pilots got shot down and some didn't. Why some spies got captured and some didn't. So what could be the difference? Well, if you ask our students, if you ask the young people, say, what pilots got shot down? They'd say, well, the stupid ones got shot down. It was the smart ones that didn't, the ones with the highest grade point average, the top of their class. So they did the research, and what they found was the smartest pilots were the ones shot down first. The smartest spies were the ones captured first. And they wondered why this was. Well, the answer is because the really smart people know what the book says. The really smart people know the first right answer. The really smart people know how to do it as it's supposed to be done because they color inside the lines. The people who are less academically smart, well, they can always find a second right answer, a third right answer, a fourth right answer. And that's how the pilots and the spies got away. So they started studying this, and George Land knew about that. He knew that he couldn't just hire the smartest scientists. It was also around this time that E. Paul Torrance of the Torrance Center had his land-breaking understanding of the foundations of creativity. And George Land decided that he was going to give every scientist a test on creativity. But what George Land also decided that he was going to do is he was going to give the same test to a whole bunch of 5-year-olds. He gave the same test to 5-year-olds as he gave to PhD scientists, the exact same test. And what he found out was that the 5-year-olds scored at a 98% genius level. Well, this even amazed Dr. Land. And he followed these 1,600 5-year-olds for 5 years until they were 10 years old, and he gave them the test again. And this time they scored at a 30% genius level. George Land wondered why they had lost so much of their creativity, so he followed them again for another 5 years. And at 15 years old, the exact same 1,600 students, the exact same test. This time they scored at a 12% genius level. To this day, as it was back when George Land did the study, adults score at about a 2% genius level. And what George Land found out is that creativity is not inherited. It is not learned. Creativity is unlearned. We are born creative. We are at our most creative when we're young, and it is taught out of us. It is taught out of us by schools. It is taught out of us by parents. It is taught out of us by society. And we become less and less creative as life goes on. So our goal, our job as creatives, as creative-minded people, as educators, our goal is not to teach people creativity, but to make it safe for people to find the creativity that they had when they were young. There are two things that follow the same trajectory as creativity. This was the trajectory of how we start creative at the age of 5, and it moves down. Two other things follow this exact same path. Number one, the number of questions we ask. Children 5 years old, from 2 to 5, they ask 40,000 questions. At 5 years old, they ask 65 questions a day. What's that? Can I touch that? Can I play with that? Who's that belong to? What's he doing? What are we going to do next? To the point that parents and teachers say, stop. It's not time for your questions. And that begins to shut down the creativity. But the other thing is that we stop laughing. At the age of 5, children laugh 113 times a day on average. And as life goes on, we tell you to be serious. Get serious. Be serious. So with that as our foundation, because this is true all over the world, that between the ages of 5 and 10, we drop our creativity immensely. So I thought, if 5-year-olds are the most creative people, shouldn't I have a 5-year-old teach my class in college? So what I did was I got this little girl. Her name is Sydney. Her parents call her Mayhem. Her parents call her Mayhem. Margarita, is there a Portuguese word that for mayhem?
Mayhem. It's difficult to translate.
It means chaos.
Yeah.
It means
O caos, a desorganização, a revolução, no fundo, sim.
yeah.
É barafunda. Em português é mais barafunda.
There you go.
Acho eu.
Well, mayhem. The story of Sydney is when she was 4 years old. She was sitting on the couch with her parents watching the Academy Awards, the Oscars, the best of the best movie stars. So they're watching before the Oscars, where all the movie stars walk down the red carpet with their fancy evening gowns. So Sydney got up and left the room, and they thought maybe Sydney was getting bored, but she came back about a half hour later. She had taken off all of her clothes, and she had gone into the bathroom, and she had wrapped 2 rolls of toilet paper around herself, making what she saw as a beautiful evening gown. And she walked into the room and she said, "Do you like my evening gown?" Well, most parents would say, "Sydney, go right in there and clean up that mess. That's not what toilet paper's for. You're wasting it." But what her parents said was, "It's beautiful. And if you're ready for the red carpet, then we better call the paparazzi." And her parents got their cameras, and Sydney walked back and forth across the living room as if she was on the red carpet, while her parents took pictures of her while she swirled around to show off her beautiful dress. So that empowered Sydney. That empowered this little girl not to fear making mistakes, not to fear doing things wrong, not to fear getting in trouble. So this is Sydney teaching my class, and we got a whole bunch of garbage in the classroom, and she led them in an exercise of creating fashion. And they did a fashion show for her, and there they are in all of their beautiful new fashions. The end of the story actually is that Mayhem now has her own clothing line with J. Crew. You can look it up, and you can buy Fashions by Mayhem out of the J. Crew catalog. Our role, our goal is to understand what the foundations of creativity are. What are the foundations of creativity, and how do we keep them going? How do we not shut them down? Because creativity is really the beginning of everything. You know, creativity actually begins in imagination. Who are the most imaginative people? Kids, of course. They have wild imaginations, right? How do we keep them with their imaginations intact? We don't tell them no all the time. Imagination, applied imagination, is known as creativity. When we have something that we can imagine, it's then important for us to work with it, to change it, to see what else it could do, to make it into different things. So it begins with imagination, and then goes to creativity. And what is applied creativity? Well, that's making it real. That's creating it in a different form. It's making prototypes. It's sharing it with people. It's seeing why it doesn't work. It's breaking it in different ways. That's called innovation. So imagination to creativity to innovation. And once we find that innovation and make it work, well, the next step is entrepreneurship. That means taking it out to the public. It's the beginning of the engine. It is imagining, building, making it real, and taking it out to the public and trying it. We're so afraid of these things. We're so afraid of these things, partially because of the way we grow up. Partially because of the way we grow up. Because when we grow up, we're so afraid of making mistakes. It's what we begin with is judgment. Judgment. Think about it. Think about it. When we're babies, remember that? Remember when we were babies? No, when we were babies and they would, you know, point the finger and they, oh, you're so cute. And the baby would grab the finger. And what does the baby want to do with the finger first? Put it in her mouth. And what do the parents say? No. You pick up a baby and they want to grab the necklace or they want to grab the earrings. And what do we say? We say no. And what the baby hears so much in the first years of life is no, don't get down. Don't touch that. That's not yours. Because I said so, because it'll spoil your dinner. No, we don't do that. No, you can't watch that. No, you can't see that. No, don't touch that. And all of these no's build up into our judgment. And what it creates is this internal voice of judgment, this VOJ, this voice of judgment. This is different than the voice of reason. This is not the, don't grab that hot stove. This is the voice of judgment, the voice of judgment that stops us from even experimenting, even thinking. And I know that if you can silence your voice of judgment even a little, silence it, hear it, you will double your efficiency and your creativity. We're afraid to fail. Most people think that life is about either going one way and making a mistake and failing or going the other way and winning. But what we know as creatives, what we know all over the world, is you go minor failure to minor failure to minor failure to minor failure. Think about everything that we've ever done. Remember when we were crawling around the living room and you saw everybody walking and you said, I want to do that. And so what you did was you tried to stand up, but you fell down. And you tried to stand up and you fell down. And you crawled over to the table and you pulled yourself up. And you took a step and you fell down. And you crawled over to the couch and you pulled yourself up and you tried to take a step and you fell down. And none of us ever said, Mom, I can't walk. This will never happen. No, this walking isn't for me. You're going to have to carry me for the rest of our lives. No, we failed and we failed and we failed and we failed. And we tried and we tried and we tried. And finally it worked. And once it worked, then we tried to run. And we failed again. We fell down again until we practiced and we practiced. Think about the first time you saw a soccer ball and you wanted to kick it and you kicked it and it went that far in the wrong direction. We didn't say, I can't do this. I'm terrible. We said, I want to do it again. And we kicked it and we kicked it and we kicked it. And finally it went the right direction. And finally it went farther. Because everything we do is, as kids, does not have that voice of judgment, does not have that inner fear of making mistakes. We're not embarrassed until we get to our 5th, 6th, 7th years and people start making fun of us. right? Until somebody says, oh, you're no good at that. And then we internalize that as part of our voice of judgment. We can't do that. We got to stop doing that. We have to empower our young people after the age of 5, everywhere we go. We have to empower them to keep trying and to keep failing. Every musical instrument we've learned, every sport we've played, every skill we have, all comes from mistake, 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 mistake. And we keep making mistakes until we stop making mistakes. There's a guy, a friend of mine. His name is Jia Zhang. Jia Zhang. And Jia is a very interesting human being. Jia came to the United States from Vietnam. He came to the United States from Vietnam, and he was trying to make his way in the United States, but he was afraid. He was afraid. And he realized that he would never, ever be successful if he continued to be afraid of making mistakes. So Jia set out on a mission. He set out on a mission to get rejected every day, to fail every day as an adult. I'm going to make big mistakes. And he got these glasses with a video camera in the glasses, so he could videotape himself failing. So Jia goes out the first day, and he walks up to this random man on the street, and he says, excuse me, can I borrow $100? Will you give me $100? Man said, no. Jia said, I'm sorry. And Jia kind of ran away. So he went home that night and he watched the recording of his failure, of his rejection. And what he saw on the videotape is something that he did not see when it happened. The man asked him why he needed the $100. Jia didn't even hear him. He was so embarrassed. He didn't even listen. He vowed that day that when he failed the second day, he was not going to be embarrassed and run away. He was going to stay there. So he goes to a restaurant, a hamburger restaurant in the United States. And they give free refills on your drink when you're out of drink. Do they do that in Portugal? Yeah. No. No. Yes. No. So Jia went in and he got a hamburger and he got a drink, and he walked up to the counter and he said, I need a free refill. And they said, of course. And he gave him this drink cup and they filled it up. And he said, I also need a free refill on my hamburger. The guy said, well, we don't do just on the drinks. We don't give free refills on your hamburger. He said, but I'm out and I want a free refill. And the guy said, no, we don't do that. And they said, they talked and they laughed. And Jia says, thank you. And the gentleman said, thank you. And Jia was no longer afraid. So the next day, for his third day of failing, he decided that he was going to go to a donut shop. He was going to go to a donut shop and he was going to ask them for a donut in the shape of the Olympic rings. A donut in the shape of the Olympic rings. If you want to read about this, Jia has a book where he goes through each one of his failures called Rejection Proof. When he walked in and asked for the Olympic rings, the girl did something very unexpected. She said, that's cool. I can do that. And she made donuts in the shape of the Olympic rings. And notice, on the third day of Jia's rejection, he's got 5 million people reading about his rejection because of how cool this was. He went on to be rejected 97 more days. 97 more days, 100 days of rejection. This was a fun day when he walked into PetSmart, a pet grooming place, and he said, how much for a haircut? And they said, what kind of dog? He said, no, for me. He said, I'll sit, I'll behave. I'll be your best client. And you saw the girl laughed and she enjoyed it. Ja is now afraid of nothing. If we could get people to no longer fear being rejected, making mistakes, people would be very creative. They'd be totally creative. They'd be like kids who don't fear being rejected. Children, 5 years old, have the perfect creative mindset. And the creative mindset is very simple once you understand it. And this is the global reality. This is what we need to do in every culture. The first thing is we need to remember to be curious, just like we were when we were kids. Curiosity, our desire to ask questions. Remember, kids ask 40,000 questions between the ages of 2 and 5. I don't think we ask 40,000 questions for the rest of our lives. We need to keep asking questions. And when children come up and ask questions to us, we need to answer with not giving them the answer. Say, that's a wonderful question. When you find out, will you share it with me? Empower them to continue being curious. Empower them to continue to move through their lives seeking answers. The curiosity mindset. That's important. We have a tendency, there was a story told to me about a teacher who would take all the kids out to the playground and say, go out there and find something wonderful and ask questions about it. And he said all of these 5-year-olds ran out onto the playground and they would look in the grass and he found a rock. And he ran back to the teacher and said, look what I found. And she said, that's magnificent. What are you wondering? He said, I wonder how it got here. She said, that's a great question. He said, this guy is a PhD professor in Auckland, New Zealand, and still remembering the wonder about finding a rock at the age of 5. And the questions they asked every time he found a leaf or a stick or a bottle cap. We need to empower people to be curious. There's a assignment that I give at the end of every class. The assignment is called What We Missed Day. WWMD, What We Missed Day. And I say, we've just had a whole semester, 15 weeks of things. What fascinated you? What really excited you? What part of this class? And go do research. Go Google Storm. Go look it up. Go find something and bring it back that fascinates you, that you want to share with your classmates. And we have a whole class of just sharing things that we found, discoveries, new information. I had a student find this video that was just so wonderful. She said, this changes the way I see everything. So I wrote to the video guy, he was in Canada. And I had a conversation with him. And he sent a personal video to the student who found his video, thanking her. He also sent a video to my class, talking about the wonder, talking about curiosity, talking about finding things. We can do that. We can all help the creativity of other people by empowering their curiosity. The next creative mindset is ambiguous, the ambiguous mindset, the ambiguity that we need. You know, our world is horribly ambiguous. Our students grow up wanting certainty. Our teachers give them certainty. Our teachers give them answers. I want you to do it this way. I want you to do it by this time. I want you to turn it into this many pages. I want you to turn it this type and these. We're taking away our students' creativity just by giving them too many answers. Way too many answers. Give them the assignment and let them figure out how to do it. Give them the assignment and say, show it to me in the best way so that you can communicate whatever it is. Well, they're going to be scared. They're going to be afraid because what if I do it wrong? Remember, if you do it wrong, you're going to have great new information on what works and what doesn't. We need to let our students live in the ambiguity. We need to let our students try and make mistakes. That's the only way we're going to get them to own their creative confidence. It's important. It's important. If you want to study ambiguity, go back to March of 2020, right? They sent me a note saying, we're hearing about this virus, and in a couple weeks, we may not be coming back for a little bit from spring break. So think about how you may want to teach class if we have to go home. The next day, they said, go home. No more time to think. You're now teaching from a distance. Well, how are we going to do that? We figured out Zoom very quickly, didn't we? They said we'd be gone for 2 weeks. No, they said we'd be gone for a month. No, we'll be back before the end of the semester. No, we'll be back in the fall. Oh, no, we're not coming back in the fall. Right? Time after time after time, we tried to predict, but there was no certainty. The ambiguity of COVID taught our students an awful lot about the unpredictable nature of our world. My question for you all is, did we make them figure things out? Or did we excuse them for being lazy? Or you don't have to do it because it's hard. You don't have to do it because maybe you might not have the resources because of COVID. We need to hold them accountable. We need to make them figure things out within the ambiguous world, because that's number one. That's the beauty of creativity. That is what creativity is really all about. It's not just ambiguity, but in the ambiguity, finding lots of answers. This was the foundation of E. Paul Torrance, was divergence. It's the first measure on the Torrance test of creative thinking. Fluency. How many ideas can you come up with when faced with a problem? That's divergence. At 5 years old, you come up with lots of ideas. When you become an adult, it's one idea, and it's generally the first right idea. It's the first thing. First ideas are rarely good ideas. Fifth ideas are rarely good ideas. We need to keep going. We need to get out of the area of familiarity, those ideas that everybody's already done before, and we need to find the area of discovery. We need to come up with lots and lots of ideas in the area of discovery. That's the divergent mindset. And from divergence, we will learn to risk. When you come up with lots of big ideas, when you come up with ideas out there, trying them requires risk, and risking means you're going to fail, the same way Jia Zhang did. He risked and he failed over and over and over again. And what he found was the ability to be resilient. We've all made mistakes in our lives, and we've all come back from them. Why are we so afraid of them? Well, we're afraid of them because of what other people will think of us. Are they going to think I'm stupid? Well, it was Socrates that said that the smartest person is the one who knows how much they don't know. So if we can get over ourselves and start saying, you know, I don't know everything. I don't know a lot of stuff. And I'm looking forward to finding out. And I will find out more by being willing to make mistakes, by being willing to ask questions, by being willing to try things that may not happen. Risk, fail, be resilient. And when somebody says, wow, you really screwed that up, you say, oh yeah, isn't it cool? Look at the stuff that I've learned because of it. It's empowering. We need to empower our people. The next mindset is the artifact, making it, a bias towards action, prototyping, not talking in theory, but writing it out on paper, drawing it, because after we do that, we can make changes, and that's called iteration. Everything is an iteration. Everything is an iteration. We don't think that we're creative oftentimes because we're not as smart as Einstein or Steve Jobs or Edison or Da Vinci. Of course, they are the greats. That's big C creativity. Have you ever written an email? Well, writing an email is a creative act. It's little c creativity, but it's better. Da Vinci never wrote an email, right? There's an even lower level of creativity called mini c creativity. There are 4 levels of creativity: big C at the top, little c near the bottom, then mini c, just following directions. That's mini c creativity, because you're creating something by following direction. You're doing something new and valuable, worthwhile. The definition of creativity is worthwhile and original. So you've done that. The third level, between little and big, is pro-C, professional creativity. And I think that's something that we can all work towards. We can see our entire lives as creative opportunities. If we know that our work and our home life, how we read our stories to our children, how we make things up for our children, how we go about making our food, how we go about arranging our homes, all of these are creative acts. Mostly how we do our jobs. How can we find new ways? And part of that in finding the new ways is to give ourselves the grace to risk, make mistakes, and iterate. Try it again. Let's see if we can do it different. Let's see if we can do it better. The next mindset is empathetic. Our empathic mindset, understanding who our customers are, understanding what they need, what they want, listening to them, feeling for them. That's a very tough one, especially as we move into a much more digital community. We need to talk to each other. We need to connect face to face. I ask my students, how many of you have ever broken up with a partner on text, by email? All of them. All of them. How many of you have ever found out that somebody died by email? We lose something as people. We lose the understanding of that empathy, of what true feeling is, what it means to be vulnerable, to be creative. We need to get back there. Then comes the 8th mindset, which is the mindset of collaboration. We need to stop thinking that creativity is one thing that comes from one person's mind. We're constantly borrowing from others. We're constantly talking to others. Our students are told, do your own work. I tell my students, talk to people. The idea doesn't have to come from your head. You are your own creative curator. You have to know what the good ideas are. You have to know, and once somebody tells you an idea, you can build on their idea, right? And all of this goes to build creative confidence. Creative confidence is really what we're looking for. This is what World Creativity and Innovation Week and World Creativity and Innovation Day are all about. It's about building our creative confidence. And the only way to do that is through those mindsets. Being more curious, finding lots of answers, living in the ambiguity, taking risks with the hope and the intention of failing, of making things, of iterating, of listening and feeling vulnerably, of collaborating. That's how you build your creative confidence. Get back to being a child. Get back to playing. Get back to remembering what it was like. So why don't I slow down there? Because we're going to run out of time real soon. And let me hear from you all. Make this just a little bit more collaborative here at the end. Any questions? Any comments?
We have a question, Jim. Thank you for this sharing. We have a question from Delia in the chat about creativity in education. How can we use it to have better results? Delia is suggesting some kind of SWOT analysis, so schools can provide some purposes at a long term. She gave us some clues, but how can we do this to enhance creativity, to enhance the results through creativity?
Well, that's a great question, and I love the way that you said that with the SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis comes from the analytical side of your brain. The creativity does not come from the analytical side. Actually, the truth of the matter is you need both sides of your brain in order to be creative, just as you need both sides of your brain to be analytical. But when you train for a marathon, when you run a marathon, do you only work out your left leg? No, you work them both out. Well, we've spent a lot of years working out the analytical side of our brain. The creative side of our brain is weak. It doesn't hold up, and we depend on the analytical side. We don't have the creative confidence to let the creative process work itself out. We need to figure that out. We need to allow ourselves those failures, but the analytical side says having a failure is bad. We don't have time for failure. We need to get success quickly. Success quick. Do it now. You know, I'll give you an analytical. You have two urns, and they're filled with black stones and white stones. Okay? The black stones, if you pull out one of the black stones, you're guaranteed success. If you pull out the white stone, maybe, but the black stones are guaranteed success. In one urn, there are 100 stones. Half of them are black, half of them are white. In the other urn, there are also 100 stones, but I'm not going to tell you how many blacks and how many whites are in there. Which place are you going to pull your stone from to see if you're going to be successful? Can I get an answer from Delia?
Se a Delia ainda está aqui conosco, em qual dos pratos apostaria?
A Délia está numa reunião de parlamentar, por isso não consegue, de governo, não consegue.
Jim,
Não consegue falar. Yeah.
Jim, Delia is sharing her attention between two meetings, so she's
Okay.
kind of jumping. Maybe she
I'm
won't
guessing.
be able to answer.
Guessing that she is going to take it from the 50-50 earn. She wants at least a 50-50 shot guaranteed. The other one, there is no guarantee. But the truth of the matter is, in the other urn, it may be 100 black stones, or there may be none. We cannot be so focused on immediate, quick, solid success, or else we lose the opportunity for the bigger success. Right? We need to figure these things out a little bit slower and not demand our success so quickly, or else you truncate, you kill iteration, creative confidence, risk, curiosity. The story I started with George Land wanting to get people to the moon, right? He didn't do it for 12 years before he actually succeeded. And there were some successes before that, but there were a lot of failures. There were a few rockets that blew up, and even a couple that blew up with people in them. If somebody had said, "Oh, can't do that, we're going to stop. It's too dangerous," we never would have gone. We have to allow enough time to make the mistakes before we beat it with a SWOT analysis and demand results.
I think one of the biggest challenges to some teachers is to manage the frustration that comes with this error trying, maybe success.
Right.
Do you have any?
Right. No, absolutely.
It's slow, it's frustrating sometimes. It's
right. But if we know that that's part of the process and we plan for it, all we need to do with students who make mistakes is say, "Good job." You know what I do in my class? You guys are going to love this. I give a failure bonus. I give students a bump in grades if they will make mistakes. Because what students tend to do is they tend to figure out what will get them an A and just do that. If you get it right on your first try, you didn't do anything hard enough. Think about it. You go to the gym, you lift up a barbell, and you do a few curls, and you say, "I'm good." Are you? You didn't struggle at all. You didn't build anything. You just did what you knew you could do. So you picked up the lightest one possible. You need to pick up the heavy one. You need to struggle. We need that in our classes as well. In our classes, we need to have our students try beyond their ability, because that's where they learn. And when my students do that and fail and show me, that's where you get the points. Now try again, because you'll get there. And now you're beginning to make something that's really interesting. Now you're beginning to try something that's really valuable.
We have other question. Can you see it, Margarita, from Sarah? Sarah asked something. Yes. Do you have it?
I don't. The last message about the free meals?
No. So, okay, I will share the question. The question from Sarah Brito is, what you do if your boss tell you indirectly don't like the creative process? So you try doing another way, you try make your best and putting your students doing another way, but the boss, and she's sharing here opinion, Portugal has a big problem. Some CEOs only speak with people at top and don't talk with workers. Right. So I think this is a big challenge you will be sharing with us also.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I will flippantly say, quit your job. Okay, now be real. there is something very important, and maybe I'll come back someday and talk about it. Remember I said that that the study of creativity began 1950s, about 70 years ago. And so late in the 1950s, there was a guy named Mel Rhodes who decided he was going to come up with the single definition of creativity. He was going to take a look at the research that was going on so that everybody could agree on the definition. Well, he failed. He failed. But he came up with a theory that all definitions of creativity come into one of 4 categories. Number 1 is the creative person. So the discovery of who are you as a creative person? Are you more left brain creative or more right brain creative? Are you a crazy, messy creative? Or are you very neat, particular creative? Because we all need to be empowered to be the type of creative that we are. The second is the creative process. We all have different processes that make us differently creative. The third is the creative product. Notice all of these start with the letter P. Creative person, creative process, creative product. What makes a product creative? But the fourth one, and this is the one most important to Sarah, is the creative press. No, it's a word that means container or environment. It's the creative climate. And if your boss will not allow you the time to think of ideas, to make mistakes, to try things, then there is no creative environment at your workplace. Then there is no desire to have you be anything other than going right down the line, just doing things as usual, business as usual. When you think of the really innovative companies like Apple, you all have iPhones out there? Yeah. You know what? Yeah. You know what Apple did after they sold you your iPhone? They started making the next one. They started making a better one. They started innovating. And not everything they do works, because they know that the creative process depends on coming up with new ideas, looking at it in new ways, actually making mistakes. It's important. So what you need to do, Sarah, is you need to figure out a way to change the culture of your office in order to be able to make mistakes. Make mistakes. What did you learn? Try again. Make mistakes. What did you learn? Iterate another one. You don't have to put all your mistakes out on the market. But there you go.
And a special Sarah is a teacher.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, that's yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is something you have to know, because being a teacher is much more responsibility in making
right. We have to figure out how not
Sarah
to make.
is saying Sarah is not the teacher. Sarah is working in an education department. Sarah, you can speak. I'm sorry. You are working in education anyway.
Yeah, it's important that our education not be about compliance. It is important that our education needs to be about empowerment. We need to get them. We can't train them to be something. We have to empower them to be able to become anything they want. And with that, I rest.
Jim, thank you so much for sharing these techniques, these point of views, and this information with us. It's a pleasure to have you here in our program. We will ask the participants to register their opinion and their thoughts about this event. Portanto, peço a quem aqui está a participar que preencha o formulário com a sua opinião, com a sua reflexão sobre este evento. Agradecemos a todos. O próximo evento é pelas 17h30 e continuamos com esta programação ao longo dos próximos dias, para a qual estão todos convidados. Até breve. Jim, thank you so much.
Jim, thank you so much and see you on the road.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And see everybody on the road. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Have